I had worked for a few years at General Motors in Detroit designing American cars, but I was always fascinated with European cars, sports cars and European cars in general. I came to Opel in 1966 on a 6-month assignment, and it was a very interesting experience. I enjoyed working here. I enjoyed the environment, and went back to Detroit to work with General Motors. A few years later, I was asked if I would be interested in coming back to Opel to work for a longer period of time. And I said, yes, how soon can I leave? That was the summer of 1969. There were several projects. One, and probably the most important, was the Manta. Ford had just introduced their Capri on the market, and it looked like it was going to be a big success. Opel did not have a competitor to it in the plan, but we did have a wonderful coupe and sedan and station wagon version, which were to be cadet replacements. Unfortunately, they were very expensive. At this point in time, it was decided to take the coupe version and extend it because it had a very, very nice body, and put a long front on it and make it into a competitor to the Capri. At the same time, the other versions were to be sold as Asconas. Neither had names at that time, but that was the idea. So in a very short time, my boss then, who was Chuck Jordan, had a long vacation planned in the States, and when he left, he said, well, you have 6 weeks until I get back, and do the best you can, but if I don't like it when I get back, I'll show you how to do it. And he came back, and he took one look at it and says, that's okay, let's release it. Well, back then, many cars were sporty cars, had associations with animals, Jaguar and things like that. But it was decided that we needed a name that wasn't just a number, and it was decided to call it Manta. Okay, and we had a very short time period, and we had to design not only the car, but the emblems for the car. And the manufacturers told us, if we don't have the design for an emblem within 10 days, it's too late. The car will be produced without an emblem. And so we sent someone to Frankfurt to the museum to get pictures of the Manta, and we found out they didn't have a very good selection. Those were the days you couldn't Google a name. You had to go to a museum and hope you'd find some pictures. Well, that wasn't very successful. But someone says, you know, Jacques Cousteau has an office in Paris, and they must have good pictures. And but we have to go immediately. I said, well, I'll volunteer. And so on a Saturday morning, I flew to Paris, and General Motors France had set up a meeting with Jacques Cousteau's people in Paris, and we went to the archives and took a look and got some excellent pictures. Well, General Motors were the first to ever do concept cars, starting in the 1930s. And as a child growing up, I was fascinated every year by looking at the pictures of the concept cars. And that was probably what got me interested in designing cars, were seeing the future concept cars. When I came to Opel, Opel had done the GT, which was actually the first concept car. Then in '69, when I arrived at Opel, it was decided that we needed a show car for the Frankfurt Automobile Show that fall, because Mercedes was going to show a Wankel-powered sports car. So what were we to do? We had the Diplomat V8, which had a wonderful powertrain, engine, V8, DDO rear axle. It had all the ingredients for a fine car. We just had to design the proper body. So we decided to do the Diplomat CD, which was done that summer in a very short time. And the results were it was a very exciting two-passenger car with a lot of features that helped us compete with our Stuttgart friends. Automobiles have a history of their own, and you're not really looking at other products when you design an automobile. You're looking at what was done in the past and what you think would be the best for the future, and you try to make it as exciting as you can and dynamic, and that hasn't changed very much. It had to be aerodynamic, it had to be attractive, it had to be good graphics, it just had to satisfy you and the design team that it was a vehicle that would be successful in the marketplace. Actually, it was very similar. You had to find ideas, and the methods then were you'd sit down with pencils and paper and make sketches and try to find a good solution. Several designers would be working together, and they would pin their drawings on the wall and discuss them, and a synergy would develop. That hasn't changed. We didn't have the tools they have today. We didn't have computers. You couldn't draw on a computer screen. The drawings were done by hand, but the effect was the same.